Lucas had always believed that his career as a civil engineer would provide him with lifelong stability. For nearly 10 years, he worked on major construction projects, helping to erect towering buildings and designing structures that seemed unshakable. He took pride in every completed project, seeing in him a reflection of his effort and dedication. But ironically, he never imagined that his own financial stability could collapse overnight. The unexpected happened when the construction company he worked for went bankrupt, leaving hundreds of employees jobless. Lucas, who had always trusted in the security of his profession, suddenly found himself without an income and with limited opportunities in the market. The industry was in crisis, and every job interview ended with the same response. At the moment, we're not hiring. Time was passing, and the situation was becoming increasingly worrisome. Beyond his own frustration, he felt the weight of family responsibility. Married and with an 8-month-old baby, Lucas couldn't just wait for things to improve. Bills were piling up, his severance pay was running out fast, and for the first time, he began considering jobs outside his field just to keep his household afloat. The feeling of helplessness grew stronger with each passing day. It was in the midst of this crisis that something unexpected happened. To save money, Lucas decided to renovate one of the rooms in his house by himself. He wasn't expecting much, just some basic repairs. But as he worked on the project, he realized something surprising. He had a natural talent for creating practical and affordable solutions. Without realizing it, he had stumbled upon a possibility that could change his life. At first, Lucas tried to stay calm. He kept telling himself that unemployment was just a temporary phase and that he would find a new job soon. However, as the months passed and job interviews became increasingly scarce, his confidence began to crumble. What once seemed like a brief setback now felt like an endless struggle. The stack of unpaid bills grew just as quickly as his savings dwindled. With each overdue notice, the pressure mounted. He cut unnecessary expenses, stopped going out with his wife, and minimized leisure spending. But no matter how much he saved, the money simply wasn't enough to sustain his household for much longer. The weight of responsibility was suffocating. His son, still a baby, had no idea what his father was going through, but Lucas felt like he was failing. Every time he looked at the crib, he asked himself, what if I can't provide for my family? What if this is the beginning of the end? These thoughts began to haunt him, even affecting his mental health. Lucas's wife, always patient, tried to remain optimistic. She believed in him and was confident that he would find a solution. But no matter how much she reassured him, Lucas couldn't shake the feeling of failure. He avoided talking about his worries, but his silence and distant gaze revealed his despair. The pressure of being the family's provider was eating him alive. In an attempt to ease the financial burden, he started looking for jobs outside his field. He applied for administrative positions, temporary jobs, and even roles that didn't require a degree. But the responses were always the same. He was either overqualified or lacked experience in the required area. His frustration only grew. The hardest moment came when he considered selling some of his engineering tools to cover the month's expenses. These tools represented years of study and hard work. Holding them in his hands, he felt a tightness in his chest. It was as if he were selling a part of himself. But faced with financial strain, he began seriously considering the option. It was during this turbulent period that a small spark of hope appeared. To cut unnecessary costs, he decided to renovate a room in his house on his own. At first, it was just a way to save money. But as he worked on the project, he felt something different, a sense of satisfaction in planning and executing every detail. For the first time in months, he felt useful again. During the renovation, Lucas realized that he could create accessible, sustainable, and cost-effective solutions. The space turned out beautifully, and his wife loved the result. Excited, he took a few photos and shared them in an online group for engineers and builders. He wasn't expecting much, just wanted to showcase his work. But the next day, something unexpected happened. Dozens of people began commenting and praising the project, asking how he had done it all by himself. Some even inquired if he took on small renovation jobs. At first, Lucas laughed at the idea. He was an engineer, not a home renovation contractor. But as the messages kept coming, he began to wonder, What if this was an opportunity? Doubt consumed him. Should he pursue this? Or was it just a temporary relief? He had spent years building a career in civil engineering, and now he was considering becoming an independent renovation specialist? The thought seemed absurd, yet it also made perfect sense. After all, he knew how to design, build, and plan spaces better than most. That night, as he stared at the messages on his phone, Lucas felt the weight of the decision ahead. Should he continue chasing traditional jobs, facing constant rejection, or try a different path, one where he could use his skills in a new way? It was a tough choice, and he knew he couldn't afford to get it wrong. The fear of the unknown still held him back, but one thing was clear. Doing nothing was not an option. He had to decide whether to keep fighting for a career path that was no longer working or take a risk on something uncertain but full of potential. At that moment, he realized he was standing at a crossroads. But will he have the courage to take the first step? Lucas spent the entire night staring at his phone, reading and rereading the messages from strangers interested in his work. At first, he thought it was just passing curiosity, but as more people inquired about his services, he began to wonder, was there really a demand for this? The next morning, still hesitant, he mentioned the request to his wife. To his surprise, she encouraged him immediately. "You've always been great at this, Lucas. What if this is the opportunity you've been waiting for?" He wanted to believe it, but the fear of failure spoke louder. What if it was a mistake? What if he wasted time on something that wouldn't work? Doubt consumed him. He could simply keep searching for a job in his field and ignore the idea of starting his own business. But he also knew he couldn't wait indefinitely. The money was running out, and his son needed stability. He had to make a decision soon, but his mind was stuck between logic and fear. To test whether this could work, Lucas decided to take on a small project, renovating the bedroom of a childhood friend who had seen his photos and asked if he could do something similar. "I'll do it for a symbolic price, just to test it out," he replied, trying not to commit too much. But deep down, he knew this was a real test for his new journey. When he arrived to start the job, he felt the weight of responsibility. It wasn't a building or a large construction site, but it was a real space, belonging to someone who trusted him. As he worked, he felt something he hadn't in months: satisfaction. He measured, optimized materials, and found creative ways to make everything functional and visually appealing. The result was better than he expected. When his friend saw the renovated room, he was amazed. "Man, this looks incredible. You should do this professionally." The words echoed in Lucas's mind. Was this the push he needed? Even so, the fear lingered. Accepting this path meant completely changing his career trajectory. That same day, his friend posted before and after photos on social media and tagged Lucas. Within hours, messages started flooding in. Some people wanted small renovations, while others asked for tips on improving spaces on a budget. For the first time, he felt that there was something here, a real opportunity. But as he reviewed the inquiries, his phone rang. It was a construction company he had interviewed with weeks ago, offering him a position. The salary wasn't high, and the role was far below what he was used to, but it was a stable job. The offer arrived just as he was starting to consider this new path, forcing him into a difficult decision. On one side, the security of a traditional job, even if it wasn't what he had dreamed of. On the other, the uncertainty of building his own business in a new area, one that had unexpectedly sparked a passion in him. Lucas knew that whichever decision he made, it would come with consequences. He wanted stability for his family, but he also wanted to feel fulfilled again. That night, Claire sat beside him and asked which path he truly wanted to follow. Lucas didn't answer right away. His mind was weighed down by the responsibility of the choice. He knew he had to take a step forward, but he wasn't sure if he had the courage to take the risk. What was the bigger risk? Following an uncertain path, or spending his life wondering what could have happened? The clock neared midnight when he finally picked up his phone to reply to the messages. On one side, the offer from a construction company. On the other, multiple people eager for his work. He glanced at his son's crib and asked himself, which decision will make me proud 10 years from now? He took a deep breath and typed his response. What would come next? He didn't know, but for the first time in a long time, he felt like he was in control of his own life again. Lucas decided to bet on himself. Instead of accepting the job offer, he chose to give his own talent a chance. In the following days, he organized a schedule, structured his services, and started taking on small projects. What once seemed like a risk now felt like a real opportunity. For the first time in months, he felt like he was building something of his own. Over time, word of mouth helped his business grow. He began working with clients who wanted affordable and creative renovations, focusing on sustainable and cost-effective solutions. Every completed project was proof that he had made the right choice. He hadn't just returned to working in the field he loved. He had discovered a new purpose he never expected. The initial insecurity faded, replaced by confidence. Lucas realized that he didn't need a corporate badge to be a great professional. He learned that success isn't just about stability. It's about impact and purpose. His work was helping people transform their spaces, and that made all the difference. Now, with a thriving business, he looks back and understands that the company's bankruptcy wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something new. His talent had always been there. He just needed to rediscover it. He hadn't just built physical projects. He had rebuilt his own story. Today, he has more control over his life than ever before. Lucas learned that closed doors aren't always losses. Sometimes, they're invitations to explore new paths. His message is clear. When the road you know closes, look around. The solution might be where you least expect it.